Let's begin the topic of pulmonary physiology by discussing first the mechanism of respiration. Breathing is the process in which air moves in and out of the lungs. Breathing is an important function of the body to provide oxygen needed for metabolic and excretory operation of the cells. This is carried out through various respiratory organs. In other words, breathing is a simple give and take process. When we breathe, we take in air rich in oxygen from the atmosphere. In return, we give out carbon dioxide rich atmosphere. So, why do we actually breathe? Breathing is a basic instinct for survival. It's interesting that we were never taught to breathe but continually do so to keep our bodies alive. So, the mechanism of breathing, we have two mechanisms, the inspiration and expiration. In inspiration, it is the process of intake of atmospheric air. The air that we breathe in and out of the lungs varies in its pressure. So basically, when there is a fall in the air pressure in the alveolar spaces, the air enters the lungs through inspiration, and as the pressure of the alveoli within exceeds the atmospheric pressure, the air is blown from the lungs during expiration. During inspiration, when the volume of the thoracic cavity increases and the air pressure decreases, inspiration takes place. The contraction of external intercostal muscles increase the volume of the thoracic cavity. Then the contraction of the diaphragm further increases the size of the thoracic cavity. Simultaneously, the lungs expand. With the expansion of the lungs, the air pressure inside the lungs decreases. The pressure equalizes and the atmospheric air rushes inside the lungs. And then during the expiration, it occurs when the size of the thoracic cavity decreases and the air pressure outside increases. Now the external intercostal muscles relax and the internal muscles contract. As a result, the ribs are pulled inwards and the size of the thoracic cavity is reduced. The diaphragm is relaxed and the lungs get compressed. Consequently, the pressure increases and the air is forced outside. The mechanism of respiration involves the breathing mechanism and exchange of gases. The gases exchange occurs by diffusion in the alveoli. It depends upon the pressure differences between blood and tissues or atmospheric air and blood. The exchange of gases takes place at the surface of the alveolus. Now let's discuss the exchange of gases. The exchange of gases takes place in the following manner. First, we have oxygen transport. Oxygen in the blood is carried to the tissue in two forms. The oxyhemoglobin chemical composition of oxygen with hemoglobin and solution of oxygen in the blood plasma. The oxygen in the blood combines with hemoglobin when the concentration of oxygen is high in the blood. Next, the internal respiration. The gaseous exchange taking place in the tissues is called internal respiration. Here, the oxygen carried in the form of oxyhemoglobin gets dissociated to release oxygen. Then lastly, we have the carbon dioxide transport. It is transported by three mechanisms. Some carbon dioxide dissolves in the form of plasma to form carbonic acid. Some carbon dioxide is transported in the form of bicarbonate ions. And some carbon dioxide combines hemoglobin for the formation of carbaminohemoglobin. Once the respiratory gases have diffused in the lungs, resulting in the blood becoming oxygen rich and carbon dioxide being exhaled, the next stage of transporting the oxygen rich blood to tissues takes place. The transportation of gases throughout the body takes place in the bloodstream through the action of the cardiovascular system, which involves the heart and blood vessels. Oxygenated blood leaving the lungs flows back to the heart via the pulmonary veins and is pumped to the rest of the body from the left ventricle via the aorta and its branches. The amount of hemoglobin in the blood determines its oxygen carrying capacity. It increases in carbon dioxide Or temperature will also decrease in the ability of the oxygen to bind to hemoglobin. This in turn leads to a decrease in performance as less oxygen means less production of energy, so aerobic metabolism. As the oxygen-rich blood reaches the capillaries, gas exchange occurs. Oxygen is delivered to the tissues, and the oxygenated blood leaves the tissues of the body and flows back to the heart where it is pumped to the lungs via the pulmonary veins. Once carbon dioxide is transported to the lungs, it diffuses out of the capillaries into the alveoli and exhaled out of the lungs.